Sham Alois Mimamakim Krasich Adonai Adonai Shema V'Kollel Tiyenos Necha Kashuvosh L'Kol Tachanunai Adonai Shema V'Kollel Necha Kashuvosh L'Kol Tachanunai Imavonos Tishmaya Adonai Adonai hachesed b'abei moifdu Yisrael Adonai hachesed b'abei moifdu Yifes Yisrael mikol avoynai son Yifes Yisrael mikol avoynai son
Shulam Alois Azoin Ayel Hevorim Ayin Yogo Yazri
Harav is a gross Rosh Yeshivas, Yeshiva Gedola, Los Angeles, Chaver from the Kollel.
Favorite Rabbi say, come together to give the covered Achron. It's very, very schwer, but to give over covered Achron for a person that Pashut gave his life to be mayor in the Keren HaTorah that you have in the city of Los Angeles. Das was Mezeta a Kollel was bekommt lernen and an Eilam from Bnei Torah together in the Stadt. This that you see not one Kollel, but you see many Kollelim in the city. Came about because of the koiches that he put in planting the Kollel here in the city 40 years ago. This that there's the Yeshiva Gedola of Los Angeles in the city. Here's a dank for the koiches that he put in telling Avek Los Angeles is a Makom Torah. The fact that he put his ganze Leben to lift up the Kvod HaTorah, the level of Torah in the city of Los Angeles. Because of that, you have a harama b'negeya to the yeshiva katanis, to the Beis Yaakovs, to every one of the Bate Knesiyas that you have here in the city, was bekommt zusammen to learn in Torah. That harama satira that we see in the city today all came about with the koiches that he put in when he planted, when he came here 40 years ago in order to shtel avek HaKollel. I think actually we were talking about it over Yontif, the first year that we came here. We is at Eiskes and Ashvuas in the city of Los Angeles. The Kollel was the only place in the city that there was a minyan in the morning. There was a few people in one Beis HaKnesses, another Beis HaKnesses, and everybody came together for Shvuas in order to daven Shachris. And the Kiddush Hashem that there was, having all from every part of the city, B'nai Torah, coming together to learn. There was a few hundred people, literally, over 100 people that came together to learn in the Kollel, and they came from other places to be in the Kollel in order to daven in the morning. Bad Kachol Tamils, that there should be such a thing, that there could be such a thing in the city of Los Angeles. And the emphasis, looking back, think to yourself, how taka was he matzliach? How did he take the achrayas to bring together the mishpachas, bringing mishpachas to the city of he didn't have then side support, gashmis side, somebody was at tzukazok. So how did he take the achrayas? It wasn't at that time, it wasn't at all the kind of a city that you see b'fanecha today. How did he take the achrayas to bring here all the mishpachas to shtel avek makom Torah? How did he know? How did he know that such a thing would be matzliach? And maybe the best way to answer it is better noch a kasha. The kasha is that the first chabura that came, those of us that were in the first chabura that came to Los Angeles, what impressed us? We had that we should come with him to Los Angeles. He told us, he's telling Avek HaMakom Torah HaKollel. What made it so that we were so impressed that we were able to follow him? We trusted him. We had a feeling that he would be matzliach. The Navi sagt, Avad chosid min haaretz v'yosha ba'odam ayin. Von ein Indian von a chosid, and von ein Indian von a yosha. In the Psalm they talk about it. The Navi talks first about the Mila von a chosid, and on top of that he talks about the Mila of a yosha. Weiße Chesep is the Mila von a yosha, is noch hecha von a chosid. What is das a yosha? A yosha is a person who's yosha ben adam lechaveiroi, but yosha is also a person ben adam lemakim. What is das yashris ben adam lemakim? A person who does l'shem shemayim, a person who does only for the simple, for the klarste tam, to mekayim rotzen hakadosh baruch Hu, without any personal benefit that he is going to have, without any personal tayelas that he is going to have. The midah of Yashris klape HaKadosh Baruch Hu. He's looking to be mekayim the ratzon of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Morgen gesagt, that's a person that does it Kollel l'shem shemayim without any negias la'atzmai. And Rabbi say, I think that was more than anything else what impressed us and why we were willing to put ourselves and all of our mishpachas into his hands. He had this midah of Yashris. We came to the city of Los Angeles, and there was many different things that were going on. And he warned us one thing: learn with the menschen. Just learn with the people throughout the day, the morning, the afternoon, like it is now. The Chevra and the Kollel, we sat and we learned. And then when it came in the mornings and in the evenings, just learn with the people. Baba Kama, Baba Mitzia. There was a search here, but there's a search here. No, learn with the menschen. Don't get involved in anything that goes on in the city. And he guaranteed us, he told us, trust me. Es wird mahapach sein die ganze Stadt. No, learn mit den Menschen. Learn by yourself. Stell weg am Mokum Teira. Und learn mit den Menschen. Das allein wird mahapach sein die ganze Stadt. This Ehrenskeit, this Klarkeit that he had, this understanding, was hat verstanden, was ist das der Koyach HaTeira. We talk about the Ehrenskeit and the Ehrlichkeit. This is what was Matzliach in the city. Und hat verstanden, hat gewusst, also wir tun l'shem Shamayim, und keine Giers for yourself, die Beine schon mit bringen Hatzloch. And we all see the tremendous Hatzlocha, das was Los Angeles heint, here baby soil, is a dank, the koiches that he put in those early years. Yosha ba'adam ayin, the Indian from Yashris, is an Indian that not only was there in the Yesodus of the Kollel, in the beginning and building of the Stadt, but that Midah was a Midah that he carried with him, Keseda. You wanted to know the Emes, and sometimes you don't want to know the Emes, but you want to know the Emes, so you go to Reb Chaim, and Reb Chaim is going to tell you the Emes. And he wasn't afraid to say. He knew. As we were sagen the Emes. But Tom l'shem Shamayim. It's wird kommen mit Hatzlacha. You don't have to be afraid. It's interessant. We were talking today, this afternoon here in the Kollel by Mincha. It was going through my mind, and somebody else told me the same thing was going through his mind. They say that when the Harav Chaim wanted to go to Eretz Yisrael, so Reb Chaim Oizer told him that he can't go. The Harav Chaim told him, was heißt, ich bin schon ein älterer Yid, so what, I have no more teyelas, why can't I go? So Reb Chaim Oizer told him, as sitzt the Tate, when the father sits at the head of the table, so everybody around has to behave themselves. Not because he's going to say something, but because he's there, and he knows. And because that everybody knows, the Tate is dorten, the Chacham is dorten, der was meint und der was tut l'shem Shamayim, is dorten und zet, und hat nicht gemeure zu sagen. It's a Mela. Everybody knows that they have to do things which are right. That Midah, that Ehrlichkeit, that l'shem Shamayim dike Midah, this is a Midah that we've always could say the felt when we were together with him. Yashar ba'adam, Yashris with Adam. That's the Midah that brought him the Hatzlochen, stelling weg as a sort Mokum Teira in the Kollel, building up, weggestellt, Teiras Emes, foundations of Emes here in the city, and Al Yodai, 40 years later, we all have, every one of us, have what to be makatayv to him. I'm sure it's going through everybody's mind. There's so much to say, there's so much to be appreciated of, and there just isn't enough time to say it. Mahafin Taka, be a schus for the nifta, that we should ourselves learn from his midas, learn from his hanhagis. We soll sich allein führen auf Asam Neufen. Spalo sein zu Ribono Shel Olam, Bila Mobes Lanetzach, Moch Hashem Dima Bi'al Koponim, V'noim Amen.
Harav Gershon Bess, Rav the Killis Yankov, and Tamiva Yazdi HaKoil. First, yes, Mechila, so Dion, they should bring the Aron in the base medrash, not. Harav Chaim was very vocal to me that he was very much against when he saw that they brought an Aron into the base medrash. So, even though there are those that are makel in certain cases, but personally I thought the way he was so stark about it, and there's no question in anyone's mind that they would have asked for Chaim. No Havamina that he would want to go in. So if I'm wrong, yes, Mechila. Rabbi Blazer said, Emes, that there are many cities that 41 years ago, looked the same as they do today. And there's no question that the fact that LA looks today so tremendously different than it did 41 years ago is a great, great part to her claim. It's Gavaldik Yischus. And I'm not going to try not to repeat, but one Nakuda, I think, many points, but one Nakuda, I think it's clear. Reb Chaim was an Eved Hashem, and he lived for everybody else except for himself. On a personal level, he was like a father. Took them to Kollel to make sure that everybody had what they needed. On a klal level, he cared that every meisid should be able to do the best that it could. And he took an interest and would mix in to any meisid, wherever it was, to make it what he thought can be an improvement for that meisid. Whether it was good for the kollel, not good for the kollel, whether it would cause benefactors to be busy with other meisters, wasn't his concern. What's good for the city, what's good for the Rebbeinu Shleilim, that's what he wants to do. It was very hard to set up the kollel, to get 10 Jungelite, to go from Lakewood and come to LA at that time. It wasn't a place that was inviting. And the place itself didn't want us. Mostly. Some did, but mostly didn't. And finally, when an oilam was put together, and then 2 years later, one of the Arich Shebachabura was offered a job in New York, in Brooklyn. And the kollel was in a panic. That such a chashuv guy, so important for the kollel, so important for the community, the kollel is going to fall apart. And I went to Reb Chaim and I said, Reb Chaim, you have to stop him. Don't let him go. The kollel is going to collapse. And he looked at me with such wonderment. He said, how could you say that? That's the best thing for him. That's the best position he could have. It'll be good for his mishpach. His mishpach has to be in Borough Park. That's where he has to be. He said, the Yechidim are not here for the kollel. The kollel is here to build the Yechidim. So how could you even think of asking him not to go? It's for him. And it was such a lesson. While others said, what's good for GM is good for Detroit. Remember that nusach at that time? And he held totally not. What's good for the Yachid, that's what the Kollel is here for, to build the Yachid. We had a Svardish younger man in the Kollel, and Reb Chaim was pushing him out. And this chaver of mine was complaining bitterly that Reb Chaim is pushing him out, pushing him to go to Flatbush and pushing him. And I said, I'm going to say the name, he's doing it for your sake. No, he just won't get rid of me. And now he's from the Choshev's Svardish Rabbanim in Flatbush. When my son-in-law, Reb Michael, Reb Chaim pushed him out, and I complained. He's going to have a place in L.A., and he's learning so stark, and it's halacha v'chulu. And Chaim said, no, he has to go to Lakewood. He has to be in a place where there's people are learning Harav. He has to reibzich with them. That's where his shteig is going to be, and that's when he'll be ready to go. And then he'll be ready. And Reb Chaim's right. Reb Chaim was kosher kebarzel. No such thing as trying to persuade him to do something that he didn't think was right. We all know. Stark, that's what he was. But on the other side, a tremendous honor. Totally never interested in his own covet. Over the years, I would have arguments, and he wouldn't budge, and I would lose it, and I would start screaming, and I'm wrong. He's older, smart, geribben, and I would lose it, and nothing. He's not nifka, a kiyuze. Never any tiny, never upset, never this. Just calm. I would calm down. And then weiter. The first sukkahs that we were here, Reb Chaim asked if I would speak. At that time, Reb Halberstam Zatzal's Beis Medrash was going to be the first time the Kollel was having something, and he asked me to speak. I had some Torah to say, and I spoke, and I personally thought I did quite well. When I finished, Reb Chaim came over. I thought, okay, I'm ready to take the compliment. And Reb Chaim said, people didn't understand what you said. You have to know how to speak to an olam of Balabatim. It's not the way to speak to Balabatim. You can't assume. And I remember I was nifka. I was upset. Chulu. But what was Reb Chaim's kavanah? Reb Chaim's kavanah was, I'm fixing you up. I'm helping you. I'm doing the right thing. Not here to sweetie pie, nice guy. No, that's not Reb Chaim. And the Maisa, paraphrasing Reb Lezer, but Ozel Gaber de Mistapina Minei. We can all have our opinions, and Reb Chaim was not always the easiest to get along with because he was very strong in his opinions. And his opinions were never about himself and never what was good for him. But Ozel Gaber de Mistapina, we think twice on any kind of a plan, any kind of mahalach. We think twice. What's Reb Chaim going to say? Like I said in the beginning, it's hard to be maspid. Somebody that 41 years, we knew 42 years, that took care of us, that was like a father to us, that did everything that he could when it came to financial. Himself was always bare. The Rebbetzin lived together with it, the Mesiras Nefesh, and were always looking what could be better for the younger light, helping with jobs, with the wives, anything. It's a schus to have known Reb Chaim, to have learned from Reb Chaim, to have grown under Reb Chaim, and it's a schus of Ma'ashtein, the Rebbetzin, and the children. And we should all be forever really indebted for all that he did for us.
Harav Rav Yitzchak David Grossman, Rosh Yeshivas Achayim, and Meviaste HaKollel.
Well, my Rebbe of Tzvi Goldstein gave a hesped from Moshe Feinstein's psalm. Started off saying, he's saying a hesped now for 5 goynim. I'm going to give a hesped now for Reb Chaim, 8 goynim though. 8 points about the goynis of Reb Chaim. The Mishnah says in Novice, Rav Meir Oimer, Kol Oisek Ba'Torah Lishmo is Zoichel Dvorm Harbe. That's the Yisrael of Chaim's successful life. We heard so much what he accomplished, but it's all because he was an Oisek Torah Lishmo. It doesn't say Loimet Torah, it says Oisek. Chaim Volozhiner learns what's Oisek Lishmo. Avas HaTorah. Yidid as Avas HaTorah, from that comes out everything that you build. Avas HaTorah, that's the Yisrael of Yid. Chaim Tzibachal, when he started out learning, he had such Avas HaTorah. Started out in Chicago, Chrysler Tzalm. Then he went to Ponevezh for Shach Tzalm. He went to Brisk from Barrels Tzalm. Then he went to Lakewood, Aaron Tzalm learned by, and he ended up in Kodesh HaKadoshim by Beis HaTalmud. Mamish Kodesh HaKadoshim, what they used to say there's a bigger merchik between Beis HaTalmud and in Brooklyn than between Brooklyn and Yerushalayim. Beis HaTalmud was Mamish Kodesh HaKadoshim, and he brought that hashpah to LA, tremendous. How did he get it all? Because he was Mamish Oisik Torah Lishmo. He had Mamish, he started out with life. He was a goyin in learning Torah Lishmo. After that, he was a goyin to be a Malamed. Had a chavrusa in Lakewood. Rabbi Yossel Singer, the Olam knows him. He's Alexander Rebbe now. He was a Talmud by Reb Chaim. Reb Chaim used to be a Malamed, 12th grade Rebbe. He gave his shir in Beis HaTalmud. So he remembers him to be a Rebbe. He showed me, Chaim gave him gave him a sefer. He wrote inside of such a beautiful nusach there. He had such ava for his Talmidim though. He gave over Talmidim so much. Chaim once told me, Taki didn't know if he did the right thing stopping, but he had such avas to give over to Talmidim as avas HaTorah. He was mashpia so much. As Yossel Singer, you know now, Imam remembers him, what he did to him, he taught him though, he had tremendous hashpah on people because of the avas HaTorah. He was a grain in that. And we spoke about he was a guy in being born in Torah. He always told me many times he doesn't know if he did the right thing or not, stop being a Malamed. But he felt he has to be born in Torah though. He came out to LA 41 years ago to build a Beis Medrash, to build a Kollel here. Mamish had to be a guy to do it though, to build Torah though. Tremendous. We spoke about him. There was no money here. I still remember the first day we came here. Came to LA the first day, 41 years. No Damas, used to be a Masmid then. So I saw my apartment door, no. Ready, I said, no, let me go to the Beis Medrash. I want to see what the Beis Medrash. I want to go learn. Let me see the Beis Medrash. The first day I came here, I want to go home. I went to the Beis Medrash there. There was no lights there. There was no doors there. We gone to like shul there. Nothing. There's no money yet. We brought 10 light here. 10 eagle light there. Nothing here. He went Mars to see his nefesh, Abbas, Torah. There wasn't afraid of anything though. That's the way he built Torah though. But that can I know. You see now what came out of it though. If Yosek Torah lishmo, I zoich ledvarm harbe. Mamish mekayim the mitzvah though. He was buying the Torah mamish from Mesiras Nefesh though. He was a guy then he'd be mekayim the Beis Medrash. There's one zak we say miyal bar Hashem, but in miyakim mekayim kadsha. It's easy to go up, but to stay there is very schwer. To keep the Kollel going for 41 years is not easy. He told me many times. The last thing in the world he would think that he would do is to be Isaac, to take care of Parnasim. And he's the last person in the world to do the job, Bill, to collect money for the Kollel. But what can I do? I'm a chayiv to have to do it, though. Makim Shenish, he did L'Shem Shemayim, though, with Abbas HaTorah, though, Shem Gem Siyata, the Shemayim, though. He did such a beautiful job keeping the Parnasim going here. It was not, he's sorry about it. It wasn't easy. When he came here, the money wasn't here yet. There was a broken Beis Medrash there. I remember the door, I couldn't go in there. With no lights, I wanted to go home. That's how we started out with, though. He had Mamis and Mesiras Nefesh, though. Then Mitzvah Shem with the schus of Abbas HaTorah, the Mishnah, Zechlet Vam Harbe, is now Mishnah going to be Mekayim keeping the Beis Medrash going. And we said, it wasn't only the Beis Medrash share. From here, many Kollel started. When we first started, there weren't too many Kollels. The only other Kollel was there was Toronto's Kollel. No big spiel. Reichman was there. Kept it going though. There's no other Kollels there though. LA was the first Kollel that started out with Shverkeit. And now Canaan, every city has Kollels though. Sounds from Chaim to learn from us. They learned from Chaim what it means to build the Kollel though. He was a going and building and keeping it going though. We spoke about it. Ben Adam Mechaber was a going in Avas Habriyas though. Love one another though. We spoke about it. He took care of everyone in the Kollel when we first came here. A lot of shverkeit. Mamish needs them to keep 10 people together, 10 mishpachas. Men, ladies, keep them together. It's very schwer. It wasn't easy. It was moist and nefesh. Mamish ben Adam Mechaber. It's Avas Habriyas had. So when we first came here, we had Rosenberg, Chaim Rosenberg. It was Chassidish. He wasn't so freedom with the chinuch of his girl. He had a girl here. He had no school to send him. Surely, he didn't have a girl to send his girls. He wanted to go home. So Chaim made a special class for his a special class. My Sarah went there also though. A special shir meant for the girls to satisfy him though, to make him happy though. The first year, then we did that. The other places learned the lesson though. They divided up the girls. It wasn't girls and boys. Then learned from him though what it means to give good chinuch though. But he was moist and nefesh for us. He did whatever we needed though. He did personal leverage that was ben Adam Mechaber in the Kollel alone. That's one nakud. The egg and the mishpach you take care of though. You know, said his mishpach is the Kollel though. It's simple to take care of your mishpacha though. But the second goyness he was where he took care of the shtat though, not his own mishpacha. Now Mishapella to see him working though. Anybody that came in, he wanted to learn with him though. Whether he's about the boss, whether it's about tshuva, this, that, long hair, short hair though. You saw him sitting and learning. I couldn't be masik how he could do that though. But he sat there and learned with people. That's the way you build up. People turned over because of that, though. Those stuff turned over that because he had Abbas HaTorah, that was the limit HaTorah that he brought. But to anybody, not just to the Mishpach and Kollel though, but the whole city, whoever came in though, he was mashpi on them. Tremendous godless though. Kabul Kollel from Sefer from Yafis. Remember, my Shiva Rebel used to tell me, as a shver zach though, the Makabel Kollel and the Sefer upon him, that's a very, very shver zach. He was Makabel everybody upon him, Yafis, no matter who you are though. He brought you in though, he gave you charus, he let you learn to help you out though. Other people from all types, Mamish Meridik, and see what's nefesh with this. He was also a going in Tefillah. Not easy to daven today. People leave it alone to tefillah. It was a goy in the tefillah. Medagdik and Oisios had a read. He was about Kaira. He was about tefillah though. Everybody knows that was an oval. They're afraid to be noble daven by Yom though. When they get finished davening, they'll come over and tell you, you made this mistake, you made that mistake. I read this way, read that way. It was medagdik and how you read though and Kriya though. Mamish's tefillah was a early shmo. He knew what the word said. I said it this way, that way. You read the pasuk wrong. Doesn't spoil for him though. You know, think about these things. He's a going though, and tefillah though, and davening to HaKadosh Baruch Hu though. That was his life though, his karmas to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And with the Eibishter, tefillah, he's talking in front of Eibishter. How else can you talk though? Talk to somebody's one after the Eibishter. How much kavanah you have to do before you daven to the Eibishter. He has such kavanah though. He was medaktik in the Isis, mamish nespoil. We heard him when he first came, he was about Kaira. He's always about Kaira though. Every diktok, a hey, a mapikay, this, everything he knew, mamik, chotasar though. That's a diktok because he was carved to the Eibishter. If you carved to the Eibishter, you talk to the Eibishter, it means something like that's the Eibishter. The Eibishter, you got to say it nicely, you got to talk the best way you could, the best lashon you have though. There's not much grain in this. We spoke about it now. But he was a going also, and Mamish giving Techocho. They haven't spoken about it already. Garva de Mustafini Mino, that's something that's missing today in LA. It's missing Mechlal in America. There are nothings that Salam Mashkiach, like we used to say, that the slogan of America is enjoy life, mind your business, live, let live, do what you want. So that's Kfira. Yid has to worry about one another though, to give Techocho though. Oyev es Techochos. Oyev Hashem Sinuro. You see somebody doing wrong, you love Hashem, you can't stand somebody's doing wrong, you have to go and help him out though. We spoke about, Gershon spoke about, Hashem's Mesiras Nefesh you did, Oyev Hashem Sinuro. Tell you one nice with me, I was mamish nespoil, and one year I was giving the Daf Yomi in Bet Jacob there. I was giving the Daf Yomi there. So came out, we made a see him one day. So Chaim wanted to come to see him Sunday morning. Book that day, the way Yom Yerushalayim was, another day there. They said Hallel there. They said Hallel there in the morning. So Chaim came there to the Kollel, to the Yasim. The Chur were making a stand for them. They helped the Kollel. They're good to us though. So I gave a shir them. So you want them chazik there. Reb Chaim got up there in the Yasim and said, "Ha chutzpah to say hello today. It's also to say hello today in front of the Oilam there." Mamish the Shreim at him. What are you doing coming here right now? We asked you to come here though. And that was it. He held that. He held this also to do it though. So he spoke up by the Yasim instead of being carried with them. So then the rabbi, I don't call him Rabbi Weiss, got up there though, and he said back to him though, "No, we're going this, we're going that though." So I said, "Okay, good, you could talk." But Lemais, he said we had to say though. He said out he wasn't afraid though. Oyeves lechacha though. Klal Yisrael needs that though. Now Chatzkel said them all that Heintig excited. If a stick would talk, you have to listen to him though. Whoever gives the chachah, the guy listen to today. Can't stop sit back though. The best friend is someone that helps you out though. We spoke about this. God with the mistafinim in there. The Chaim is coming. You're afraid of him though. Not as yira, as ava. Imam was your best friend. Ben Yain said the best friend you had is someone that helps you out though. From a stranger, he tells you what to do. Who are you? But your best friend tells you what you do. Well, you listen to him though. That's the greatest thing that could do to happen to you. Chaim was the greatest person here. He helped us all out though. When you saw him coming though, God with the mistafinim in there. We need this. For this we have to learn to take out. We have to live a life like this. We know we just went through Kollel Satorah. We had chasna today. Everybody had chasna today. We all got married today. Where was the chuppah? Kof alem hakagigas. That was the chuppah. Pilei ploim though. Kof hakagigas. That's Hashem was moneying us though. Hey, Mama should force us to mekabel the Torah though. Kof hakagigas, and that's the chasna though. You can't force them to have a chasna though. And that was the chuppah hakagigas. Teretz says though that's the best thing in the world though. You give someone techocha though, you wipe out the Yitzhara and mainly you do what you really want to do. Klal Yisrael really wants to be married to the Eibush. They want to be close to the Eibush though. So Kochen HaKagiz though, he did the best thing in the world though. The Rosh said we have to live a life. Say that the Harav on top of a mountain, top of a head though. Say you have to live this way. You have to have Yer Shemayim this way. You have to take out from Chaim. It's not here anymore. Physically, but it's machshavos though, in your mind though, you still have to keep him in your mind though. We have to realize that every year has to worry about himself though. The Mishnah says, "In Meina Nili Mili." You can hear a lot of Musa though, but if you don't work on yourself or take it to yourself, it doesn't help though. We have to think about what Chaim said every day should be in your mind. Think about what we spoke about. What would he say? I wouldn't do this in front of Reb Chaim though. We have to live a life like this, and it'll be a tremendous chus for Chaim though to wake up and do what HaKadosh Baruch Hu wants. And again, the Yisrael is Avas HaTorah, Avas HaBrias, Avas Hashem. We have to build up in yourself tremendous amount of Ava. That's Kabbalah HaTorah. We just went through Shavuos though. That's the Devarim Harbe with Avas HaTorah, and that's what Chaim was the epitome of Avas HaTorah, Avas HaBrias. One help on one another shall be zecher to keep up his avodah.
Harav Baruch Hu the Great, the Rosh Kollel of Merkez HaTorah, and the Chaver of the Kollel.
Harav Chaim Fasman said, to be master of the person, you have to have some hasaga in the godless of the person. You have to be someone who's able to appreciate the person. To someone to be oimed v'toy al kalkanoi of the nifter. Chaim was from a different door. Chaim's milas were, even though we could sort of superficially understand them, but his milas were from a mocker and an avos HaTorah and a yiras Hashem, which is l'mayla from what most of us can be masik. So I wouldn't like to say that being maspid of Chaim. I'd like just to mention a couple of points. When he came back from the Levaya of his shwager, Rav Drebin, Zechron Levracha, many years ago from Toronto, Chaim came in the Beis Medrash and he told me that his sister, the Rebbe Gesundsein, said to him, "Sie versteht nicht, was darf man haben das Speidim, oder we need das Speidim." She says, "I'm the wife, these are the children, these are the Kehillah, and these are the Talmidim." The Rebbe Fasman, soll sie gesund sein. For people who are not in the position of being involved in moistus, it's hard to explain what it means to be the wife of a Rosh HaMoisid. There's a tremendous amount of a burden of responsibility that lies on the person, and it often has to be done completely alone. And Chaim had an unbelievable ezer, unbelievable chizuk, unbelievable simchas HaChaim from a woman from a very unique family. The children are alle gesund sein. B'miuchad, B'noi B'chayim Mamalim Akaymai, Shmuel, soll gesund sein. Brothers, sisters, Schwagers, very unique people who all reflect the milas of a mishpacha miyucheses b'Yisrael. And then, like all the Maspidim said, here's a stop. Can't tell you exactly which chelik is Reb Chaim's, but it's unlikely to find many places where he doesn't have a chelik. 36 years ago, Rebellia Shvei, Philadelphia Rosh Hashiva, Zecher Tzadik v'Kodesh Levracha, spoke at a Torah Masorah convention. He said the following: it was a year in which the Satmar Rav, the Tzelem Rav, and Rav Braya Zechronim Levracha passed away in 1 year. Rosh Hashiva said, Memele, heintigs Jahr steht man in a Sache kleinere Madrege wie letzte Jahr. Since these Gedolim have passed away, the Tzibur, who's attending here the Torah Masorah convention, is on a lower madrega than we were last year. And he explained himself. He said two things. He said it could be the people here who never came into contact with these Rabbonim, they weren't from the Eidah. But the Rosh Hashiva said there are two things you need to know about Anoshim Gedolim. Number one, the Metzatik in the Gemara Lamed Zayin in Masechtas Sanhedrin. Hahu biryoine to have a b'shevavusa de Rab Zeira. Rashi says biryoine pritzim. There were very difficult people who lived in the neighborhood of Rab Zeira. For Rab Zeira was makar of them. The kapte bei Rabbanon. The Rabbanon and the Beis Medrash, the colleagues of Rab Zeira, were makpid that he was makar of these people. They held they were beyond the pale, should leave him alone. Then Rab Zeira was nifter. And the Brioni said, until now, there was an Alter Yidl who was davened for us. And he was Megan Aleinu. But now that he's not here, so who's going to be making on us? And the Brianim did Tshuva. Trebelli gesagt, darf doch verstehen, as Anoshim Gedolim take achrayas for the Tzibur. I don't know whether Gemara means that the Brianim thought that Rab Zeira really davened for them directly, or they just felt in his chus. The mayor felt he davened. He took them seriously, he worried about them. And he was yoreid ad tohim libam, and they were makabel. And he was zeichet to be machziron b'tshuva. Second thing the Rosh Hashiva said was the following. The beginning of Parsha Shemos, I don't know exactly Tiktok and Psukim now, beginning of Parsha Shemos, first it's mitzativ the names of the 12, the Shiftei Kah. Then it mentions that in Gansen the door was nifter. The Sforno says the following: the people who are nokvu b'shem oisam, they had a bezundra oyer, bezundra hashpa, and all the time these people were alive in Mitzrayim lo yiskalkel hador klal. The door wasn't miskalkel altogether. When they were nifter, there was still the shivim nefesh sheyordu Mitzrayim. There were still people who were born in Eretz Canaan, who were born on Taras HaKodesh, who were born in Beis Yaakov Avinu, not in Mitzrayim, and they were able to hold back the kilkul somewhat. When they were nifter, there was still an Amram, there was still an Aaron, there was a Nachshon ben Aminadov. There were people there of the Madreg of Dor Makabli HaTorah, Dor, for whom is Nikra Yamsuf, aber sie sind geboren geworden in Mitzrayim. With all their madregas, they weren't able to help the door, and the door was mitamik shrotzim. Very strong lashon, as steht in Sforno, as hat Rosh Hashiva gesagt. So he said, the Gedolim, Rav Breuer, the Satmar Rebbe Zechron Levracha, the Tzelem Rav Zechron Levracha, these were people who came from a different world, and they kept their world, and they represented that world. They were able to hold the door back. Reb Chaim, Tyre Reb Chaim. He came from Beis Talmud. Yeah, he was in his father's yeshiva in Skokie. He was in Ponevezh, was very close to the Ponevezh Harav. He learned Barabel. He learned Barabaran. But his Hauptrebbe was Reb Chaim Fasman, Zechatari V'Kodesh Livracha. Anyone who knows anything about Beis Talmud knows to be a Talmud of Reb Chaim Fasman, darf man halten mehr. He himself said he wasn't a Talmud, aber gewinnt a Talmud. And he came here, and it's over 40 years, and the Lamed Shvacha Shel Aaron Shelo Shina. He had exactly the same hashkafa, exactly the same suit, exactly the same glasses he had 41 years ago from Beis Talmud. Didn't make any difference. All of Los Angeles, and all of everything that goes on here, and everything everybody does, wasn't Mashane Kiyuzeh. Nish B'daitoi, Nish B'minhagoi, Nish B'musaroi, nothing. And as all the Maspidim said, it wasn't Kedai to try to discuss it with him, there's nothing to discuss. He had a daya, and the daya was Yisodasa B'Hari Kodesh. That governed the Mistafina Minei is Nora Nora Shaboilam. How much Megan that is on a shtot, how much that protects, how much Kedusha that brings to a city, how much it's able to help people Miyasid Moistus. It's not time now to tell Maisim, I'll tell two Maisim on the Messiah with this. The uniqueness of a person has a saga of life different from ours completely. There was a Yid in town, Reb Yitzchak Greenberg, many will remember him, he was the handyman of the Kollel, he was very close to Reb Chaim. In his later years, he used to spend every Shabbos in the Fasman house. Came one day on Shabbos, it was the summer, and the house was boiling hot. No air conditioning, no fan, nothing. So I asked Reb Chaim, what is this? So Reb Chaim said, oh, Mr. Greenberg doesn't like air conditioning. I thought about this many times. Mr. Greenberg doesn't like air conditioning, so you bring him every Shabbos to be your guest, and the entire family in the entire house is going to be boiling hot because Mr. Greenberg doesn't like the air conditioning. I understand what type of hasaga and avos habrius this is. When we made the Kollel, which is very much part of Chaim's avodah, he kept me here many, many years longer than it was good for him to keep me. And he encouraged me to make the Kollel. He helped with whatever he could. About 6 months before the Kollel began, he came over to me. He said to me that he has to raise my schirus, has to raise my wages. Rosh had a very modest income. Was it whatever it was? This was maybe 10 years ago. Came to me and said he wants to raise my wages. I said, I wonder why. He said, well, I hear you have a lot of expenses. He raised my wages by $3,000 a month. $3,000 a month. It was a difficult financial situation. It wasn't easy for him. It was a huge amount of money. I couldn't understand. What does this mean? Why does he do this? Later it occurred to me. He never told me, but this is the pshat. Going to a new Kollel, you're going to have to establish a payroll and a wage structure. And the Balabatim are going to ask you, what was your schirus in the other Kollel? And you're going to tell them it was X. They say, very good, so we'll give you X plus something. That's it. Chaim felt that wasn't fair. So without saying anything, he took the achrayus on himself to make sure that the schirus should be b'derech covered. Hundreds of stories like that. It's Belisov. And as Rav Gershon said, it was always about the other person. I don't think he himself ever bought a car since he came to Los Angeles. He only had cars other people could no longer throw away. Those are the cars that he had. He was happy with it. I have to ask Mechila like everybody else does. Not because I think that I wasn't respectful to Reb Chaim, or I didn't love him. I think I was respectful, I think I love him. I don't think it's shaykh to be oimid on him. Das mechila for not realizing you're not oimedani, for not realizing that you're not masig what's happening here. Halavai, we should be zeicher that some of these hanagas should be nitfas, the roimimus and the adinus, and the Yiras Shamayim, the Avos Hashem should be a slus. So then a beta nebech sein Bruder, Reuven Michal ben Shena Bela, she does our share matzav. Chaim, gate fan Kisya covered. Person who did for others has a schus to ask for others. So beten, für ganze Stadt, für alle Moises der Teure, für alle Nitzrachim, für Klal Yisrael, für Bila Mavis und Netzach, Mocha Shabina Me'al Kapanim.
B'nai Reb Nosson Fasman, B'nai L'Kollel.
I don't know, excuse me for not speaking so clearly. My mind is full of so many things to say, and it's just hard to put it together. Tati, your patira was on the day that we laid practice by Midbar. When you came to Los Angeles, it wasn't Midbar. Chol Yisrael was only by order. Yashin was practically unheard of. And as you told us so many times, people thought you were crazy for bringing a kill to Los Angeles. But look at what you built. B'shivim nefesh yardu, you came with a group of 70 people, and look at what you've grown. Look at what you built. And just as Har Sinai, when it came in contact with the Torah, flourished, grew flowers, grew greenery, so too the city of Los Angeles, when it came in contact with Torah, it has grown to become an Ir V'En Yisrael, largely to your credit. Tati, I had this chus of seeing you in a different angle than most of the tzibur here. You asked me to come to Los Angeles to work for you, for whatever your agenda was on any given day. As many of you have seen, he always carried around this little book, his daytimer, with people that he needed to see, people that he needed to talk to. On any given day, there were 30, 50, 70 names of people who he had to see. And he would go through them very, very organizedly, step by step, name 1, name 2, name 3. Go through it step by step. He never made any decision without clearly thinking it through. There was no such thing ever as an immediate answer. People would come to him with all sorts of questions, with all sorts of issues that had to be brought up, and people would want a response immediately. Stop, think about it, let's sleep on it, and then we'll decide tomorrow. People often call me up in the office. They want to know if everything is okay, because Tati is just sitting in his car, just like spacing out. They want to make sure everything's okay. He would just sit in his car, just thinking through an Indian to decide just how to proceed. If Shimshon Zatzal once told me that when he was in Beis Talmud, Tati was known that he would be facing a wall, just staring at the wall for an hour straight, just thinking through a sugya. Just deep in thought, like nothing, totally not being, feeling anything that's going on around him. Tati, you were very intense about most things in life, but you always had a very serene demeanor. Rarely did you ever get upset. You never got angry. And you always spoke with clear and conviction. That everyone knew that when you said something, it would start out and it was something that you weren't going to budge from. This is something that brought you much respect and what people looked up to you. I remember once as a young child, I don't remember exactly what it was. For some reason I was home from school. And I went, I guess, I wasn't sick, but I was home from school. And I went with Tati downtown to City Hall to fight one of these, I don't know if it was a liquor permit or it was it could be it was the beginning of the Grove when they were first having permits. And as we were walking into City Hall, every government official knew who he was. They were all, Morning Rabbi Fasman, Morning Rabbi Fasman. They all looked up to him with as I covered, and I was thinking, as a young kid, like how do they all know who he is? He left an extremely strong impression on people from all sorts of walks of life. When they had this a few years ago by the elections, when they had the Proposition 8 issue, and he was very strong in fighting it, even though he told me that he knows at the end of the day the courts are going to overrule it, but he felt we still have an achrayus to spend thousands of dollars to fight it and to push it. But he himself, on the day of election day, he went down over there to Garner Street by the polling station, and over there outside they had those people, with the big, with their big no signs, and he pushes sat there talking to these chevra one at a time, convincing them to go home, and he was successful. He sat there talking to each one of them in their own way, connecting them just to go in their own way. He also had an extremely wide variety of people, and he felt that every single person has extremely strong kaiches, and he felt somewhat of an achrayus to direct people in their way. Sometimes his alliances were somewhat odd, to say the least. So I'm always with the shakes over here for this project or for this thing. When he was busy also with the Proposition 8 business, there was a Chabad Shliach out in Yor Belinda, Rabbi Eliezri, who was very, very involved with working on the exact lashon. He managed to find a big support, or he managed to find the right connections with people from all sorts of walks of life. Many of you will remember the story a few years ago when we had a guest who got lost, and within a few hours he managed to put together an extremely large team of people searching for him. My father also was extremely private. People knew that they could tell him all sorts of things, and it never got past him. And even when things that I thought were negated to the Kollel, he always would just brush me off. Very often, he would call me into the office that he has to write a letter to somebody, and he had over there something which sounded juicy and wanted an explanation for it. So it's none of your business. It has nothing to do with you. You just write what I'm telling you to write. Tati had a tendency to connect and to feel very, very strong with the people who were very often ignored, the people who were very often had a hard life. He very strongly believed in Evan Masu Abayim Haisla Reshpina. Given the right circumstances, everybody can grow. And he worked hard, and he worked tirelessly at this. He had extreme hakar satayv to anybody and everybody. Those who would give shiurim for the kollel, those who were donors, big and small. Very often there would be like a small donation that would come in, and I was always shocked that he would give it as a bracha. Like, wow, it's such a beautiful thing that so and so sent money. He often told us that his mission is to build Torah. And people always gave him credit, and as was mentioned before, he never liked to take credit for anything for himself. And he said it's all the everything comes from Kodesh Baruch Hu, and he quoted from the Mashiach and Eretz Yisrael that of course it's the Eibusher that runs everything. It's just that the people who are the Askanim, they see how Kodesh Baruch Hu fears the Welt. I remember one time it was like a interesting. He was one time short. I remember it was $17,200, and my father was never nervous about money. Like no matter how much money he needed, it never was his concern. Like it's going to come no matter what. And for some reason, this like $17,000. For some reason, it just didn't come. He's waiting for it, and it was coming. I remember correctly, it was the 15th, and Mamish that morning, out of the blue, he had two checks, one for $15,000, one for $2,200. He came to the office. He said, "Someone just brought it to me, and he gave it to me. Put it into the bank so that we're okay for today." He used to have this thing I remember from as a young child. In the morning, he would call the bank, and if there was money in the account, so he would go learn. If there was, and if he would just overdrawn, so then he'd go to the office and take care of it. I remember one time there was like $10 in the account. Tati said, "Okay, there's money in the account. He's going to learn." I thought it's only $10 in the account. How long is it going to take you? Tell me one time there was 1 penny in the account, and he went to go learn. I remember just a side point. I remember when they first started having airplane, like phones on the plane. He's going to call from the plane. It doesn't matter. He has to call the plane. He has to call the bank. It's fine. Tati was never into anything for himself. It was always for the tzibur. It was always for the city. Very often before Yom Tov, people had to give checks to B'nai Torah, to the Rosh Kollel. His checks, I still have a pile of them in the office. They never get cashed because nobody should be giving him money himself. He doesn't need it. He doesn't want it. He wouldn't touch it. As was mentioned earlier, very often when other kollel wanted to open up, and the initial reaction is chutz b'neiret. We were the first kollel in Los Angeles, practically the first kollel outside of the New York area. But he often said, "My tachlis here is to build Torah. It's not for me, and if it's better for the city to have Nechal Kollel, so it's not Shenazai." On the other hand, when it was for other cities, he spent some time in Detroit. He spent time in Chicago when they had issues with their Kollel. He understood it, the like reaction, but for himself, he never accepted it. Just to end off, the Gemara says, the sun set in the afternoon. So Rabbi Yochanan, it's referring to the Misa of Rabbi Yochanan. And the before some ask is that the Gemara tells us a different story. The Gemara says that when Rish Lakish was nifter, Rabbi Yochanan couldn't be consoled, so they brought him Nachat Talmud, and everything that Rabbi Yochanan said, the Talmud brought him 24 rayas to what he was saying was right. And Rabbi Yochanan told him, for this I needed a Talmud to tell me that what I'm saying is right. I know that what I'm saying is right. When I had Rish Lakish, everything I said, he asked me 24 questions, I answered him back 24 answers. And with that, we were Marbet Torah. And the Gemara says that Rabbi Yochanan was so distraught over the loss of Rish Lakish, as she got some Medaita, he pushed him on Meshuggah, until the Chachamim were Mispalo, that he should die, and he was nifted. So how does this come in to Baal Shemesh B'Tzarayim, which is seemingly that Rabbi Yochanan died so suddenly? And I once heard, and I told it over to Tati, that the few months that Rabbi Yochanan was walking around, Yatzim B'Daitoi, the massive Kiddush Hashem, that people saw, that Rabbi Yochanan, who lost 10 of his own children, was able to go on giving shir. But when he lost his Talmud, he was Pasha Yatzim B'Daitoi, the massive Kiddush Hashem in that was so great that when he was actually nifter, it was a Baal Shemesh B'Tzarayim, that Kiddush Hashem was no longer here. Over the past 6 weeks, since Tati was diagnosed and sick, the city came together. People made Kabbalahs. People who had chizuk. Rebet, don't give it up. Keep the chizuk. Keep the Kabbalahs. So b'shal b'zayich of Mach Hashem alikim dimah melka panim.
The Eidem Rabbi Yitzchak Batnik, Harav Chaim.
It's not my place to stand here in front of Chashuvim, Gracie Eden, to try to say Hesped, try to be Mitayr. The godless of an Anak, the godless of my Shver, Tati Zechorin Levracha. My only schus, Ya'av Achoiv HaKaras HaTayv. I was Zoichet to meet him 13 years ago, came out to the day. I was in awe by the godless and the yashrus and the ava that he exuded, that shone forth from him. And ever since then, he treated me with such ava, with such care. He treats every one of us in the family as he treats everyone in Klal Yisrael, with pure heart and full of emotion and warmth. Yisayimim ha'yinu ve'ein av. There's a mitzvah to be misabel, to be moirid mois on an adam kosher. The Maral explains that the inyan of dema, tears come when a person sees a gaping hole, a chisaron. If we're all moirid mois on the Grace Adam kosher, that means we're raising our madrega to realize the gaping hole that there is in the community, in the family, in Klal Yisrael. As he goes up to Shemayim, to the place near the Kisei HaKavod that HaKadosh Baruch Hu has prepared for him. To be Ma'ich, a Yid, like my father-in-law, Zechrein Levracha, is not for something. It's not something a person of my smallness could possibly imagine. Tati is a Baal Messiah Neirah. He carried with him the Messiah, the Haskalah, the Shirashim that he was Mekabel from his father, Zechrein Levracha, as he always said. Everything he has, that he lives for community, for building Klal Yisrael, he got from his father. He went on to be a Mishamish by Gedoylei Olam. Rabbi Mendel Kaplan, Zechron Levracha, was his close Rebbe. He was close, ma'oi, to the Panovich Harav. I note in his notebook, Hesped, that he wrote on the Panovich Harav, Zechron Levracha. Hat gesehen, der Heilige Chazon Ish. Hat gesehen, Briskerov. Und nachdem solche Mishamish gewesen, sein größer Rebbe, Harav Chaim Fasman. Und als alle die Heiligkeit, alle die Dvorim Kedoshim, was hat Mekabel gewesen von Anakim, von Gedoylei Olam, from generations past, he held in his heart, and he never moved a second from everything that he stood for, and he put it into Binyan Torah, and Binyan Yechidim, and Binyan of the Klal. The last couple days, I spent some time reading the Heilige Ksavim that he has from his years in Beis HaTalmud, in the years when he started the Kollel. There's a page there that hit home. He writes there, his Cyrus to himself, the words of the Mesilas Yesharim, that the Mesilas Yesharim begins, and we know he used to sit all the time after davening and read over the Mesilas Yesharim again and again. He never got much past the first few pages. He went over and over and over. And he wrote the words, Sheyisbarer v'yisames machayvasar ba'olamai. And this was his lashon. Hatzara haki gedoyla v'hamafsid haki mishamemes. The greatest tzara and the most destructive force that causes desolation. Shikchas chayvazu milavavai. To forget the chayvas ha'adam ba'olamai. Ba'asher kifi shemisparer u'misames etzloi. In as much as the chayvas ha'adam is misparer and misames etzloi, u'kifi shir shenase etzem mitziusoi. In as much as the chayva becomes the etzem ha'mitzius of the adam, yesh kiyum chayvasoi. There's a kiyum of chayvas haboirei. Have a Rebbeinu Shalom's command b'chol ma'asav asher ye'aseh b'chol machshava v'dibur asher yegeh. Nair Nerois, these are the words that Tati Zechron Levracha lived. The Chetz of Yerushalayim that he was, the Tif Hashrosha of every emes that he learned, that he taught, that he lived for. This is what he lived, and every second was Mikayim, the Chayvas HaBoirei. I had this chus in the last few weeks to spend heilige moments being mishamish him all of his life. He never let anyone do anything for him. Besides, Ma'amit Balachayim Taidim, who served him, the Mesiras Nefesh. In the last few weeks, when he was so sick, his goof was broken. He had no choice, he didn't want to, but we had to help him. First, Tati, you have to ask Mechila if we didn't treat you with the right respect, if we pushed things that we thought you needed, maybe you didn't need. HaKadosh Baruch Hu said it was the time, and you knew it was the time. I stood there next to him. I put on his tefillin, and he was making sure I had it right, and then he wanted to check that it's straight. And he stood there and he was shaking, his body was shaking. As he stood to daven Shemona Esrei B'Amida, I stood behind him, I was scared he would fall. And when he was done, he collapsed in the bed. He said, water. The Yerushalayim that was coming in that Shemona Esrei. And he didn't want anything at that time. He wasn't interested in food. He wasn't interested in jokes. There was one thing. Any divrei Torah, no matter what it was, he begged us to say it over. Torah, Tehillim, and he said along. He couldn't talk, but he said along. He mouthed the words, Tehillim, Shiras, Torah, Yerushalayim. The last Friday, before he couldn't speak anymore, I had this chus. I sat next to him. I learned the whole Shir and I kept stopping and saying, Tati, it's too much. No, weiter. And he would read the next pasuk, Samolo Tachas Roshai. Yimina Techapkeni. Who could talk about the milas? My tire is schwer. I only knew him for 13 years. Everybody knows more than me. The pasuk says in Micha, "Higid lecha adam matay v'ma Hashem she'el mimcha." What's good? Was will the Eibishter? Ki im asais mishpat ve'avas chesed v'hatznei aleches im elokecha. I want to say hesped. I'm not Roy, but I want to say Al Pi the derech of this pasuk. Asais mishpat. The Rosh Kollel was mishpat. Everything was bedafka. And I heard a few times what he liked to say over about the great Goin, Reb Leib Malin, who he was zeicher to learn by for a year and a half. He called it, Reb Leib had the midah of bedafka. Every iota of everything in his life was bedafka. The same we could say for the Grace and Iftar. He didn't move a finger without bedafka. Asois mishpat. There's no such thing. There's no such thing as I'm in the mood. My tire Schwieger, always tells us, when she brought him a drink when they were first married, he said, wait, I'm not ready. I have to think how much liquid I drink today. Is this avodas Hashem to drink this cup of coffee? Avas chesed. Mi lanu, ki Rosh Kollel. That he could grab somebody and criticize him. And all that comes out of it is more love and can be shown by someone that smiles and laughs and giggles and hugs someone. I want to say over words Rabbi Yisrael Erlich Shlita wrote on the Grace the Rebbe of my share, Harav Chaim Fasman. I think it's so appropriately befitting to describe my share. He writes, "The Afgam Zois Shekol Chayav Hayu Misurim Lezulasai." All his life was master to others. Uba'ad atzmoi lo haya mevakesh me'uma. He didn't ask anything for himself. Daigosoi, his worry haya daiga zulasoi. Tzairoi haya tsar zulasoi. V'gam simchasoi haya simchas zulasoi. Haya bal regesh godov libo haya pasuach lekoil. Everybody knew how much he cared about them. And felt with them. Any little pain. And then he writes, at times he fought with people. And he fought a war with a person. Notwithstanding, the person didn't know that it was the best thing for him. But he pushed and he fought because all he cared about was not pleasing people, but pleasing Hashem by being native to others. And he writes, so true, the proof that it was only l'toivas the other person is sha'oisam anoshim, those people that he pushed against what they thought they wanted, nisharu, they remain maritzav, the ones who consider him great, the oihavav and his beloved friends, kol yemei. So true. Tati Zachari Levracha cared so much about everybody. He was the manig of the klal, as he liked to say. Besides for that, there's a concept of the manig of the prat. There was no such thing as a yachid that wasn't important. Every yid, every bar mitzvah bacher was the most precious thing and deserved his time with full attention like anybody else. And he worried about them more than we sometimes worry about ourselves. Pasuk finishes, "V'hatznei aleches im eleikecha." There's nothing to say. I'm not shaykh to talk about the grace and midas of tznius. Rosh Kollel was tznius she'ein l'shayir ve'ein l'tayir. He walked himself. He talked to himself. He never expressed any of his concerns or thoughts. It's all with the Rebbeinu Shalom. It wasn't something that he had to share with others. It's not important. Sharing with others were only for others. For himself, he talked. He figured it out. He worked it out. Nicht gehabt kein zich. Nicht gehabt kein zich. Not 1 ounce of zich did he have. Metzias was Maser l'klal, Maser l'yachid, Maser l'mishpacha, Maser l'avodas Hashem. And the last thing, Hatsnei Aleches, Im Eleikecha. Im Eleikecha, Dveikos B'Hashem Yisborach, is the semel of what the Rosh Kollel stood for. We know he spent time putting in on the Paroiches, B'chol Derachecha Da'ehu V'hu Yiyasher Orchaisecha. He said people will get lost, people don't have clarity. And the super clarity that he had in every single area of life was because of that. B'chol Derachecha Da'ehu. Know the Rebbeinu Shalom, and with that, your derech is yashar. The yesod of all of his midas is from Torah. Writes in his ksavim, Harav Chaim Zatzal said, a tzaddik, someone who has gewaldige tzidkus, but his milos are timidiyos. They stay. A chacham, his milos are mischadshim tamid. The milos a chachma. And he writes there, V'roitz Eloymar, Chazal say, Misha yechla yelech it's a chacham v'yivakesh mimenu rachamim, v'shivakesh alav rachamim. Why a chacham? Because a chacham knows how to be nice ba'olam chaveiroi. The grace of midas the Rosh Kollel had were rooted in the Torah, the Oira Torah, the Amkus HaTorah, the Dveikus HaTorah. His Dveikus HaTorah, his Lo Ye'uman, that he thought about a sugya for a year straight. I can tell you, sugyas he was saying on, he had it in his head and it didn't move, it stayed for a year. The Hispaninus in Akasha that he had, he would think about for 30 years, 40 years, and he never forgot anything because everything was his precious, precious words of Torah that he learned, that he harved on, that he wanted to get clear. And yet in his Anvasanusoy Agodol and his Abbas HaTorah, he was machnia to every person, the smallest, simple yid who was saying a pashat of vart, and he listened to him with full ears. He wanted to hear what he had to say. Very, very often he didn't agree. He would simply say, I need to digest it. He was so particular in emes. He only took exact, perfect emes and pshat. Until he accepted something, it took forever. But then it would never move. It was a rock wall. And nevertheless, he ran after everyone, and he learned, and you see on his stand there piles of different people's stickles Torah. He wanted to go over it, Nachamal, because he was running after Torah. The Kavod HaTorah, the Chavivas HaTorah, and the lack of Chanifa never was flattering. Simply say it the way it is. The last time I heard him say with energy at Dvar Torah, on the phone, my sister-in-law in Eretz Yisrael, he wanted to read to her a page from a book from Rav Shach, Zechreinu Livracha, and was quoting a Yerushalmi. Rabbi Avohu was walking and his face was shining with radiance. Rabbi Yochanan said, his face is shining because he saw a chiddush in learning. Chachmas Adam Ta'ir Panav. And I heard him stress it on the phone. I was standing right there. Chachmas Adam Ta'ir Panav. What lights the person's face is Nachat Var Ta'ir, the Chachmas HaTorah, the Dveikus in Torah Hashem. And this was the shine of emes shown on his face all his days. Tati, you were such a mishenes for us. We leaned on you for hadracha, for everything that we need to know. Whatever the Tati says, that's going to be right. Rabbi Yerucham writes, he said, when we're missing a mishenes and we think, what should we do? Where are we going to lean? How are we going to get hadracha? The Mishnah Tzaita tells us, Ein lanu li'ishoyin ela alavinu shebashamayim. HaKadosh Baruch Hu makes himself easy for us to find. Tati, at this time, when you go up to Shamayim, we know you want us to seek B'chol derachecha da'eyu, to find how to lean on the Rebbeinu Shalom more, to follow in your ways. Tata, please be meilitz yasher by the Rebbeinu Shalom to help direct us, the family, that we should stay glatt in the derech haemes that you taught us. Please give koyach to retire Reb Shmuel, to be manig the Kollel with his tkifus and his mesirus and his hargasha of Abbas HaTorah. He learned still like a 17-year-old bacher. Should have the koyach to be mamshech in learning. To Reb Nosson, who Tati always spoke with such love, how dedicated Nassan is to Binyan Kollel, Binyan of Klal Yisrael, to my own family, the Burstings in Eretz Yisrael, and to the Mami Shlita, Tati B'Meletz Yaisha, that she should be able to continue strongly and teach us the Gewaldige Tzidkus and the Avos Hashem that she shared with you her whole life. And she constantly expresses Haidul Hashem Kitayv Kilo Eilam Chasta and every Mashu. And when my Shver was so sick, one time I started crying in front of him. And I said, Tati, it's so painful that you're so sick. Stop me. Kol Mad Avid Rahman al-Tav. Kol Mad Avid Rahman al-Tav. He said it, and he meant it, and he lived it. Every mashu of everything the Rebbeinu Shalom does is only, not, it's b'di'evet, it's lechatchila. It's exactly the good. Tata and Emel knows. The way the Rebbeinu Shalom sent this chayli, and the way it was slowly set upon us, lovingly, so it shouldn't be harder than exactly the measure the Rebbeinu Shalom wanted to be, as hard as it is. It's all a tav. And the Mami soll sein gesund. She saw it in every step of the way. So the Eibishter helfen, we should continue to have koyach and be mamshech in the heilige drachim of Torah and Avodas Hashem, tznius and emes. We thank the whole community for their mesirus, total devotion, and outpouring of caring, taking care of us, taking care of everything we need, being so loving and wonderfully forthcoming to help us with everything we need. So the Eibishter helfen. We should all see Mashiach Tzidkeinu b'mher v'yameinu, should be bila mavas l'netzach u'mach Hashem elikim dimo me'al kol panim v'nei marami.
Rosh Kollel was gebenched, Zecher Tzadik Lebracha was gebenched, with a group of Balabatim who b'msiras nefesh took it upon themselves to be there whenever the Rosh Kollel needed them. The love and admiration that the Rosh Kollel Zatzal had for these people is beyond what I could possibly express over here. If things were kitikunai and the time would allow, we would owe it to all of these balabatim and to ourselves to hear from each and every one of them. But being that the time is late and the time is short, we're going to ask one of the balabatim who the Rosh Kollel used to refer to him as the Amut HaTavach of the Kollel, Reb Zev Walmach, to say a few words.
On behalf of the original group of people who dedicated themselves to the renewal of the Kollel, the Friedman family, the Meir Levin family, the Rechnitz brothers and myself, we want to acknowledge again that we commit ourselves to supporting the new Rosh Kollel, Rosh Fasman, and the continued growth of the Los Angeles Kollel. Just recently, Tuesday before the Yom Tov Pesach, I had an opportunity to spend an inordinate amount of time with Reb Chaim at my house. And Reb Chaim had spoken on numerous occasions about his excitement about the opening of the new Kollel here in Los Angeles. He felt that anything that helped further Torah was beneficial to the city and would give new schusim to the city as well. As a trailblazer of Torah in Los Angeles, he understood all the challenges of opening a kollel, and he was only more than eager to lend a helping hand to this new project. We asked, myself and the original group, we asked Mechila from Reb Chaim in any way we might have been pagay in his covet, as we have worked with him for the last 23 years. And we ask that his schus of trailblazing Torah and helping this kollel sustain and all the new Torah that has come forth from his work and the new kollel that will now be established in Los Angeles, it will be his schus, and the kiyam will be forever as he has done for everybody else and for Torah in Los Angeles. And he should be a schus for us, a schus for Klal Yisrael. Amen.
The day after the Ptira of the Chafetz Chaim, the Mira Mashgiach Rabbi Yerucham Zatzal, who the Rosh Kollel Zatzal always used to quote, spoke in the Radha Yeshiva. And he said that I will now reveal to you something that I've never said before in my life. He said, when I was a bacher, I came to learn in Kollel. I was zeicher to hear a few shmuzin from the altar, and it was a life-changing experience. But soon after it came to an end, the altar was nifter. And the night that the altar was nifter, I stood outside the room, and I cried and I cried and I cried all night. And I said to myself, and I still remember saying it over and over to myself, I've just learned what it means to be a human being. And now it was taken away from me. Rabbi Sai, I don't know if we are great enough to stand one night and cry and say that I am today what I am because I stood one night. Rabbi Yerucham said, what I am today is because of that night that I stood outside the altar's room. And I don't know if it's enough that we are zeicher to see our great Rosh Kollel Zecher Tzadik Livracha for all those years. And the closer we were, the more appreciation we had for him. I don't know if all that is enough. But one thing we have, Hiniach ben Kamoisai. We all know the tremendous love and admiration that he had for his great son, Reb Shmuel Uzziah, Shlita. And now as he takes the mantle of being the Rosh Kollel, we all need to understand that he is our Rosh Kollel. And I think it's important, I'm speaking to my Yedidim and Chaverim, and especially Loimde and Chavrei HaKollel. We are used to calling him by his first name. I think it's important we remember now that either he's referred to as the Rosh HaKollel or Reb Shmuel Uzziah. And we have a lot, we may be older some of us than him, we have a lot to learn from him. And being that he takes this position, HaKadosh Baruch Hu will give him b'yasasei, so b'yasaros, as much as we have seen B'li'ayin Hara, the growth in this future Adam Gadol. We need to stand behind him. And to the Machzikei HaKollel, it's very much appreciated whatever you did for the Kollel until now. But it's important for the Kollel and it's important for the city that this blossoming Gavra Rabbah continues to grow in his Torah learning. And all those who are bicholes to support financially need to take it upon themselves and to resolve right now that we will see and we will do everything that our new Rosh Kollel continue to be able to grow, to sit in the Beis Medrash, that when he calls the bank he won't find out that there's $10 or a penny in the account, but he needs whatever he will need. My Rabbi Sai, the Rosh Kollel, Harav Adoy Reb Shmuel Uzziah Fasman.
Ich glaub nicht. Mir glaube nicht, dass wir stehen da jetzt. The last couple of weeks. Shevesh Apostes Tmimos. How there's Kollel Zecher Livracha. Hat gelitten, was suffering. Suri HaGuf, Suri HaNefesh, something that shook every one of us. The closer we were, the closer we saw it, the more we wanted to keep people away from seeing such schreckliche Tsar. Pasha traumatizing Kipshutoi. Mamish a couple of weeks ago, was at Walmart. My father was so close to brought into the Shiva Malkiel to his bedroom. My father started speaking. Malkiel is a Talmud, my father makes a Talmud. Started saying the pasuk, Mei Shinei Seinu, Vehem Shivim Shana, Him Gvurei Shemaim Shana. Chal Sheinach Gvureis. Yet the tog is a bracha. And that should be these days in pain is the taf of it. Something he spoke about so many times. So many times he would speak about. And to speak about something is beseder. But to see it being lived in such a tsar. It's been stressed over and over again how Seichel was the guiding koich in his life. To see a Seichel falling away. At the same time, what was embedded in his nefesh, that he embedded with decades of avoida. Doctors came by and said a person in his state should be talking divrei nevala, should be talking nivul peh, but he should be speaking with such a takeif. when he saw both his life going and we saw his seichel going. Talk to us for a moment as a son. How could we speak? How could I speak? Adam Gadol. It's been stressed again and again how stark he was with every yachid v'yachid. With the kinder was no different. The kinder was no different. Demanding, commanding. Hey B'zachuf, I want to see better, I want to see more. At the same time, the liebshaft that each and every one of us had towards him is immeasurable. And how it is that he accomplished both, commanded such a ava and such a yira simultaneously, was only because he was so real, so caring. Was kann tun für zweite, was kann tun für sein Kinder? And has been stated, there's so many people who feel like kinder. Again, with a dual side, as at the academy, at the same time, a demand, a command, but knowing that it was just the toiva aschem, the toiva HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and what naturally would have caused such a resentment did not cause that at all. There's so many nekudas to discuss. It's a shpet. It's been mentioned that the Gewaldige Akras HaToiv that we have to have to the Kollel. I do want to point out something that he would want to be said. While these last weeks are so difficult on so many levels, up until that point, he was gebencht with moedike gesund. And he was conscious of his gesund, and he took care of his gesund. And it's something which he demanded of us, demanded of many people, to be achroi for their gesund. And it's something which he was grateful for, that he was so healthy up until that point. His first admitted to the hospital, he came to ask. Doctors wanted to know his history, if he was hospitalized other times, he was sick other times. He said when he was 6 years old, they took out his tonsils, so that was like something which he was tremendously makatoy for, we have to remember. It's been stressed again and again, his strong-mindedness. To be aimed also that so much of his hashkafa came at a later point in life. He had no problem being mekabel. It was meshodik mekabel. It was mekabel more than just about anybody we've met. But it had to be something which was able to be mekabel, something he was able to understand, something which he was able to realize. And once he was mekabel, that's Eretz where it started the strong-mindedness. That's Eretz where he sought his achrayus, his duty to give it over. It's also been stressed. Personality-wise, he did not have the personality of a manik. eloquent, and as a people's person, charismatic. He was what he was. He was what he was, and he knew what he was, and he would not take no for an answer. If something had to be done, he would do it, even though he was not. He felt he was not necessarily the right person. If he was the one, he was the one to do it. He was going to have to do it, and he would do it. He felt in tremendous achrayus to the city. He told me more than once. It's interessant. He said that he lived in a number of places over his life and had different hergation, emotions, feelings of affiliation to certain mekaymis. Los Angeles, he never had that hargasha. He didn't have an emotional attachment to Los Angeles bechlal. Purely intellectual. Such a sense of achrayus. Was mit tafton, was mit kenton, and things which people thought mekanishton, he felt mekanisyeton, and the focus we have to try, and what happens after that is not up to him. About a week and a half before Pesach, he went away for a day with my mother. He wasn't yet aware of his chayli, slowing down a little bit. My mother asked him, perhaps, maybe it's time. You've done what you've done. Some against Eretz Yisrael. Time to settle in Eretz Yisrael. He was already schwacher. He didn't think he was so sick. He said, no, was haste? How could I leave? There are 3 things which I still feel have to be masakin before I go. And he counted out what they were. He had to do A, B, and C, and he was mefaret to what he felt. Tikkunim that can be done, and tikkunim which he felt he would do. Was great otherwise. No suffix. Had the Baruch allowed him to do those 3 things, he certainly would have found another 3 things. Another 3 things. He couldn't bring himself to luz up. With an achrayus which he felt, which was kollel every part of his aspect. Achrayus to others, achrayus to the city. Fas kemiton, with his limitations, with slowing down, with that is done. For me to begin talking about the gadlus of this Adam Gadol, this Pashat inadequate. I can't begin talking about the Heilig Midas, the Midas Toivos. The Midas Toivos is something which time doesn't allow, and my ability to be mefaret does not allow at this time either. Pashat Oived, the idea of working on something for a stretched out, procrastinated amount of time, something which is so foreign to us. We live in a world of instantaneous gratification and having to work on something. As my shwager mentioned, we would be on the same page again and again and again. The same page in Moshe, the same Shari Tshuva. Nachamal, and he would talk to us about it so many times. He would talk here B'Ravim so many times, again and again and again. Lazab, Genukshan, we know that word already. And what wasn't about intellectual giving over something new, was about Avodah, about something which he lived. And we'd hear it again and again and again. Talk about, hey, look, your skills, your Shemai. Pachet from HaKadosh Baruch Hu, pachet from was mit Tafton, being able to live up to it. Again, something which is harder and harder to find. Yira, to be afraid. The Rebbeinu Shalom after the Welt. The Rebbeinu Shalom was one who's Teveios. I'm not saying anything new to anybody who's been here. He'd speak about it all the time, but something which, and we used from him, just came piecing out. It's not for any one of us to figure out what was the defining factor of this Heilig Yid. A Yid I know was once part of Shach. Shach said a very interesting Zach. He said that he personally had contact with the Gedolim of the previous generations. And he said to Kenzain and learn, and there were people who were even bigger, there were Gedolim who were even bigger than the Heilig Harav Chaim. And from that the Harav Chaim was the Harav Chaim. He said it bothered him for many, many years. What was it that set the Harav Chaim apart from everybody else? And at first he did not want to tell this Yid what his answer was. He wanted the Yid to think about it. And the Shach finally told him. he said it, a par kurz word, he said about Heilige Harav Chaim Kol Meisav was L'Shem Shemayim. Khalil didn't mean to say that other Gleilim not. But there's a level of L'Shem Shemayim at Harav Chaim which was unparalleled. Rabbi Yerucham, Mashgiach, who the Shkel was so awed by, and set his life on that course so strongly. Hat all gesagt about his Talmud, Reb Chaim Yisoker, the Shkel's Rebbe. He was once sitting and Reb Chaim Yisoker was a bach in the mirror, and he passed by. The Ruchim said, "That man verstehen as dog gate Chachma." If we could say about the Shkel, with the Shkel going by, dog gate Ratzon Hashem. Dort geht ein Mensch, was tracht noch eine Sache, was Ratzon Hashem, and it's irrelevant what the reaction is going to be, what I'm going to have to live up to, what I'm going to have to put up with, different flack, different people. Was will der Mensch leiden? It's irrelevant if I'll be successful, if I'll not be successful, if ich darf tun, was ich kann. And there's a Rebbeinu Shalom, only the Rebbeinu Shalom will be my guiding force. Will be kaveh what should be done, what has to be done. I mentioned also the idea of Gavrdim Stafina Minei. Very, very frightening thought. Skirol was nifty, it was Adam Godel, I forget one of the Masidim, I forget now who it was, who got up to say, Skirol was always, so it's a Gistan and a Yira, commanded as a Yira. Adam Godel hat gesagt, Rabbi sei, der Rav ist weg. Heint, alles ist hefke. Heint kommt an was man will. And Chalila, think to ourselves, just the presence of the Shkel, just being here, just being alive, holds us in check. Holds us in check. Who are we going to turn to for that? Fear. Dem Stafina Minei. Stafina Minei. One very, very important message we have to chaz it over again, something he taught us in such real, vivid terms. Something he taught just by example. So many times he went so much keneged what we thought was right, what we thought would work, what we thought should be, because we're living in a physical world, we're living in a world what we call reality. The Shkel hat uns gelernt, gewissen time and time again, such derech neis again and again, that the ultimate reality is Ruchnius. The ultimate reality is Ruchnius, and he would live his life on that wavelength, on a wavelength of Ruchnius, and the fact that it's not practical, how's the young man going to work, how's he going to settle down, and what's going to be nachtem, was totally irrelevant. He was living in an Olam Ruchni, and he demanded that of every one of us. And derech neis mamish. It was again and again and again. We'll think, we're surprised that this particular catch us by surprise. Medical perspective didn't catch us by surprise. Surprise was the Rebbeinu did not do a nace to save him. So many nisim to. So many nisim to. We are sure. The Rebbeinu was going to save him. A nace, not a nace. What's a nace? The Rebbeinu tells us that the person doesn't believe in nisim, and he lived the night of life of nisim. He felt what has to be done, he's going to do, and if the Rebbe wants it, will, and if not. We weren't zeicher to the nace. We had a demus within us, amongst us. And the Rebbe said, Adkan. The Rebbe said, Adkan. Comes down and saying to me, Tati. Comes saying to me, my father, there's Kollel with manning is something which is so difficult, so impossible. Shir 140 would say, Shminat Tzeres. Chazal say, Kodesh Baruch Hu tells Klal Yisrael, say li suda ketana. Koshalai Pridaschem. You would go through the whole Seder of the Yachas, the Klal Yisrael builds itself together with HaKadosh Baruch Hu, starting from the clap of Tisha B'Av, moving on to the Chizuk of El, Rosh Hashanah, it says Meitruvi, Yom Kippur, Ne'ilah, comes the Yimei Simcha of Sukkot. Baruch Hashem says, after such a gewaltig experience, how could I say goodbye? Koshalai Pridaschem, Aseli Sukkot Suda Ketana. Stay another day, please. He would say Duchzach from Rav Nosson Mashgiach Lakewood, he would say over Gevald. If a person is having a hard time saying goodbye, what's it going to help Suda Achas? What's it going to help one more day? Whatever challenge you're facing today, you're going to have to face tomorrow. Seif Kol Seif is going to have to be a Preda. What's the Eitzah of Shmini Atzeres? And he would say, something he would like to say right now. Every one of us has to say. Ta'avoida Shmini Atzeres. That avoida is that the kesher with the Rebbeinu Shalom becomes so stark, so tief, that can pray the vet nicht sein. And yes, even if that Mitzvah Shmini Atzeres Klal Yisrael is forced to physically go back to home, but the kesher now state hecher is a lot higher than a physical boundary, a physical location. I don't have to be physically here to be with the Rebbeinu Shalom. No matter where I am, I could be as far as Los Angeles. If stay in the house with the Rebbeinu Shalom, I'm not going away. There is no parade, no parade there will be. That's the avoid of Shmini Atzeres. We have to work in ourselves. That this Gadol Rabbah, this Adam Gadol, Rebbeinu Shalom was mezakos to have as a father and the Tzibur as a manig. We have to work consciously to incorporate that what he does, we're not saying goodbye from. We're not saying goodbye to Tati. We're saying goodbye in a physical sense of the kasha we have with you, the kasha you gave to us. Steht infinitely higher, noch tiefer, and even though now you're going lemala, into the place that you worked your whole life to get to. We're not saying things, we're not saying goodbye. Please Hashem, we should be to always have the dmus of you, Tati, as our moral compass. Was darf man tun, und wie darf man tun, when darf man tun. And if we're saying goodbye in a physical sense, it's only that. It's not more than that. That darf man alles halten, the kesher, l'netzach. The kesher l'netzach, with the Kollel, what he stood for, what you taught us, but primarily by example. And yes, you would give us musar, and you would teach us directly, but so much more so indirectly. And misognish goodbye, we're not saying goodbye. How could us ask Mechila? Simply, first and foremost, for not living up for what you expected of me, what you expected of us. And that's particularly Mechila. Again, in these last Shabbos Rabbosis to me was seeing you in Tsar, and being mishtadel, and trying to minimize it, Tsar, but not trying hard enough. Trying to be mishtadel in Yanim Gashmiyim, and not trying hard enough. Most frightening of all, trying in Inyanim Ruchaniyim and not trying hard enough. How much Ashtadlus was made in Inyani Gashmi is Layuman Ki Supar. Could I say the same thing about Inyani Ruchni? How many Kabbals were made? How the Kabbals were carried out? How could a person ask Mechila for such a thing? We have to ask him to be Meichelas. And we tried, but we didn't try hard enough. The Rebbeinu said, it's time. Higia Ace. I have to be Messiah. The Ava that you had to all of us. And to Iker to Mami. Eishes Chayil, he had such an appreciation for bringing the Kaidas and Nefesh that she had, different than your own, and that you so desperately needed to do your Avodas Hashem. You're going to be before Kisya Kavod. We ask you to be made Yosher by the Rebbeinu Shalom. Please pray by the Rebbeinu Shalom the Manjul Zalabun Koyach and Simchas Achayim and Nachas from your work, from her kinder, from your kinder, from the whole Kehillah. And it should be Poil, Gevaldige Yeshuas, not just for the Kollel, not just for the city of Los Angeles, but for all the Klal Yisrael, which was always so close to your heart. We should always, you should be Zoicha to bring Yeshuas through your tefillas to Klal Yisrael. We should be Zoicha to be as Mashiach v'meher v'yameinu. Amen.
Shem the Chavre Kollel, Mispalei Kollel in the entire city. We'd like to ask the Nifta, Reb Chaim Zelig, Berbosha, Mechila. We were beginning his covered or spoke inappropriately or whatever it may be. We ask for Mechila.
Floor will be in Har Menuchas Wednesday afternoon. Shiva will be at 223 South Formosa. Shiva will begin tomorrow. There'll be a minyan for Mincha tomorrow at the house. The times for the minyanim will be announced. And at this point, we're going to be Malava the Aron from the alley towards the house. We're going to go down Formosa. Those of you that want to follow us tomorrow morning will be leaving the house at 8:30 towards El Al.